Hey, what's up guys? As you can see by the title of the video, this is going to be an advanced Captura tutorial. Now, disclaimer that this is going to be assuming that you know the basics, such as composition, positioning, all that kind of stuff. This is more of like just a tutorial to make your Captura poses look better. As you can see here, I'm like doing a lot of experimentation with my limbo, but you'll be seeing later in this footage that it didn't really work out that well for me. So you know, it's just a matter of getting everything done and whatnot. So I just decided I'll just settle with like without the infested units in there, and I'm just gonna like do a bunch of other stuff, adjust the lighting definitely, and as you can see I'm just like waiting for that moment in the animation to actually just go by. As you can see here, we finally got to that point. I'm also using toggle advanced time, so I just spam my T key until I get to the right frame of the animation, and then I adjust the lighting. Lighting is a really important thing, honestly, and I think the best way to go about lighting in a Captura scene is to make it seem that like you have it. It fits perfectly well with the environment, but also makes it so that the subject stands out. And now, when we actually took the screenshot, you'll notice that there's some jagged edges there, and I do not like the jagged edges whatsoever. I had like anti-aliasing maxed out, but it still like makes the edges jagged. So at this point I'm using I can't speak today. I'm using a brush, a smudge brush, that has a very low strength. Well, actually no, the strength is variable based upon the pen pressure since I'm using a tablet to do this, so that when I'm doing the smudging, it's not too harsh, and that it's not too noticeable. And to do that, I usually use like the transfer in the transfer setting in the brush presets and set the control to pen pressure. I also do the same for like shape dynamics, so I'm not covering too much area. And like I said before, as you can see, I'm just like smoothing out the edges so it looks good and doesn't look so jaggedy. Because if I wanted to save this as a poster, I mean a wallpaper, I don't want to see that. That's quite unsightly, in my opinion. I want to make my poster look as good as possible. I'm pretty sure that's why he came here as well. Oh, and by the way, the version of Photoshop that I'm using is Photoshop CS5 or CS6. I don't remember exactly. And I think we're about to reach that point where we're actually like finished doing all that smudging. I'm just messaging someone on Steam, giving them life advice. I might just like blur it out because this is some really personal discussions. Yeah. So we're getting to that point now, because I've been watching this clip for a couple times. We're getting to the point where we're going to start adjusting the brightness and contrast, have a little bit of foundation work once we're done the smudging. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to be using the dodge and the burn tool. Around the subject, we use the burn tool to darken some areas so that the subject will stand out more, and we also use the dodge tool on this subject to make small changes that are quite noticeable to the person. And now we're going to be using a soft brush here. Of course, transfer and shape dynamics to add in some manual rim lighting to make it easier for the subject to stand out. And what this does is like it also creates a nice little effect. And and after that we're going to do some smudging and some erasing and a bit of more dodge and burn. Didn't seem to work out very well though. It's really nice to do those rim lights to add a bit more definition to your character and a bit more depth. Now another thing I'm gonna added here was some little trail effects to the throwable knives, the fusili. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. I tried adding a bit of motion blur, but I decided I'll just make another effect at that point. So I just added a bit. That's where that blur came from. And another important thing is to like use different layer modes and set the. I usually use like soft light, hard light, or vivid light, whatever works and whatever looks cool. And I just added a bit of effect there to a glow, and then use Gaussian blur. And then I began using gradients to add a bit more to the poster, the capture a screenshot. I also set that to soft light or hard light, whatever is subtle and not too noticeable, but you could definitely see that there are lots of colors around, so it's not too flat. I use like red, blue, and green, and all that other stuff. And now, as you can see here, I'm gonna be starting to use a brush that has practically the same settings, but it's gonna be in soft airbrush. And I set the brush mode to dissolve, and then I did a Gaussian blur on it, and then I started smudging it and whatnot. Then at that point, I added another gradient to add a bit of light, and I started erasing around it, other than limbo. And I added a bit more rim lights because I wanted that gradient to be under limbo to be like a light source. And like, of course, set the layer modes and whatnot, do a bit of adjusting. I really wanted to make it. I wanted to make it look really nice, and the end result actually did look really nice. And then after that, I added in some more little cool looking effects there. Did a Gaussian blur, I believe. Then adjusted the opacity and the layer modes. Did a bit more of the dodging and burning effects. And at some point, I believe I added a vignette by using black gradients to give it a nice effect. And then, as you can see here, I did the same technique that I did with the trails, but instead I put it on the Limbo's hands. Set the layer modes, of course. And then I added another layer, and then I just made a little glow around there. And another thing I like to do with my posters is add in those black bars. So I kind of got that cinematic effect. And this is where I put my signature and whatnot. And at that point, we pretty much finished our work here. I was really satisfied like doing this. I'd say that this took me about like an hour and 40 minutes because I had lots of experience doing this. Oh, and just so other people know, why am I all of a sudden making Captura tutorials when I'm not very well known and whatnot? Well, simple. I have a very interesting background in terms of doing stuff like this. I've made Source Filmmaker posters in the past, and I'm not very well known for my work because I don't get very much exposure for what I do. But yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe.